All right, folks, thank you for attending another webinar Wednesday. We're keeping you guys filled with good content while we sit in our homes and work remotely. So thanks for joining again. Yes, this session will be recorded, so there will be a follow-up recording sent out after the meeting. And today I got a great guest, my friends over at ControlUp. They are a frequent attendee of these webinar Wednesdays. I think this is our third one that we've done, and I got a great crew today with me. So my name is Pete Downing. I am the CMTO of XenTegra, and I am your host. On the phone, I got Marcel, Barry, and Lisa. Marcel, can you give yourself a quick intro and tell everybody who you are?
Yes, thank you, Pete. Marcel Clef. I've been with ControlUp coming up on 3 years. Prior to that, 10 years of experience on the end user computing and VDI in industry with Citrix. And just as a nice additional item, I worked on satellite communications for 10 years. So I know a lot about latency.
Yeah, well, Marcel's a smart guy, so I've known him a long time. And then next in line, we got Barry. Barry, give yourself a quick intro, and Barry and I go way back.
Yeah, so Barry Flanagan, I lead America's sales for ControlUp. I've been here just over 2 years, spent 12 years at Citrix, 5 years at VMware, and I knew Pete when he was an SE at Ardent's.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those are the days. Those are the days, right? We're dating ourselves now. So
I still remember that amazing Dell video that you did at Ardent's.
Yeah, yeah. And then Lisa, you want to give yourself a quick intro? You're a first time caller, long time fan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Pete. Hi, guys. My name is Lisa Malachevsky. I'm the event marketing manager here at ControlUp. I've been with ControlUp for coming up on about 2.5 years now, started at the sales team. And if you go to all of these Citrix, all of these VMware events, you have probably met me. So I'm excited to for those to start back up again.
Yeah, I was gonna say if anybody has attended Citrix Synergy or VMworld, you've probably met or seen Lisa. You're always smiling and in the booth and hanging out and having a good time. So
Always.
So thanks for joining us today. All right, so just quick housekeeping. We are on GoToWebinar. There is a Q&A dialogue box. We definitely encourage questions. I do pay attention to those, so please ask questions today as Marcel, the master of demos, gives a great demo on ControlUp today. And that is pretty much it. So it's a pretty easy platform. Yes, there will be a recording sent out as part of the follow-up. So you will get access to the recording so you can watch later on. So that's about it on GoToWebinar. So today we are going to jump in and do a quick overview on ControlUp. But before we do, let's talk about some things. So we are running these weekly, and I started off pretty aggressively. I was doing what I call double header webinar Wednesdays. I'm going to tone it down now because I kind of caught up, and we're going to do the same time, same channel. And if I might get a vendor here and there and might do another double header in the future, but we're going to keep it 11 o'clock every Wednesday, most Wednesdays moving forward. So keep your eye on the calendar and definitely bookmark this page. Upcoming vendors include, we got next week, I got Login VSI, my friends over at Login VSI. The week after that, I got Rubrik. And actually Rubrik is going to be highlighting some functionality and talking a lot about backup and security and ransomware. And then finally, later in May, I got Zadara, which is a very interesting technology. So those are the upcoming. And then I might slip in an editorial webinar Wednesday focused on CMD, Citrix Managed Desktop versus Windows Virtual Desktop, WVD, and why I think CMD is a great option. Parallel, XenTegra.com/events. Definitely check this out. We got a lot of great online events coming up. Like, for example, this week I have a WVD workshop that I do. Next week I got my Citrix on-premise to Citrix Cloud migration workshop. So I got a lot of great online workshops, and guess what? They are free. So they're fun. They're about a 7-hour commit at the most. And they are some are filled with lots of demos and some are filled with hands-on labs. And then finally, XenTegra.com/podcast. Andy, our founder and CEO, loves to do podcasts. I'm actually working on a podcast that's going to be more industry focused. His podcast is dedicated to Citrix. It's called the Citrix Session, and definitely check out the latest and greatest podcasts that are up there today. All right, so those who have attended my sessions in the past know I love polls, and we actually have a fun poll for later on in the call. We're going to save one, but I am going to ask a simple poll question. I got 2 polls to start, and then we'll save one for a little bit later. So the first poll is just a basic question. It's what, and if you're a user, pick the one that aligns to you. But if you're an administrator, pick the one that you typically see. So what is the biggest complaint that you get from your end users when using some type of session-based, computing, whether it's VDI, it's a XenApp scenario, it's RDS, it's AWS workspaces. I don't care what it is, if it's cloud hosted or data center hosted, what is the biggest complaint you get? And I asked this question because I know my master of demos is going to talk a lot about how they can solve some of these issues. So I'm going to give this a couple more seconds. Again, these are anonymous. People can't see your answers, so don't be afraid to answer. And if you are part of the company, answer the one that affects you. So again, this is more of a subjective poll as well. So pick one that affects you. So give us a couple more seconds. And I see some fun names in the list today. I'll do a little shout out. Welcome, Joel. Welcome, Doug. All right, going once, going twice, and the last call. All right, so we got actually, I'm shocked that this one is the answer. The response time is slow, and response time can mean your mouse click. It can mean, anything, videos. I know we're going to talk about this, so I can't wait. I'm not going to steal Marcel's thunder, so I'm going to leave that one be. Login time. If you're having login time issues, let us know. I can tell you right now, 1, ControlUp can help you know that you have login time issues, but 2, working with a company like XenTegra, we can help you enhance your logon time and make it a lot better. And then disconnect issues, bandwidth, internet connectivity, etc. And I'm surprised no one picked access issues. So that means either Citrix or your vendor of choice is working. So, all right, so let's do one final poll, and then we're going to jump in. So more of a general question, just around Office 365. Are you using Office 365 today, and in what mode? And by the way, the first option, I always forget to correct it because I'm using polls. So that should be on-premise / hybrid. And then the second option is Exchange Online. And then the other ones are pretty self-explanatory. So I'll give this a couple seconds. And if you are a vendor, pick the one you're using, or if you know. I love seeing the responses come in. So give a couple more seconds. Going once. Going twice, and then last call, and done. So we got a lot of folks even. And the funny thing is, if I asked this question even a year ago, the on-prem / hybrid was more prevalent, and it's starting to, depending on the crowd and the number of people and respondents on when I'm asking this, I see more and more people saying Exchange Online, and less saying kind of know that they're not really looking at it yet, or it's on the radar. So this is an interesting snippet of data because there's a lot more no's this time around. And then yes, every now and again I do get Chrome Enterprise, and get on you for using Google Chrome. I love it. So all right, so we're going to save the final poll for a little bit later because there's a really good one, and I don't want to steal Marcel's thunder. So if you're not following XenTegra or ControlUp on social media, please do. Please, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube channels, Instagram, etc. So definitely give us both a follow, because I know I love ControlUp. They post a lot of great content, and then vice versa. I try to post a lot of good content, not only on the XenTegra page, but if you want to give me a follow, I try to post meaningful content as well. So today's goal is simple. We are going to talk about ControlUp, and we're going to hone it in around a blog that I was reading on their site. It was called The 5 Tips for a Better Remote Worker Experience. And Marcel's going to cover a lot of areas on where ControlUp can help you solve some issues that some of your users might experience, whether they're, and it doesn't have to be remote work, it's just they're in a VDI session. How can they get better optimization around remote work or cloud-based session computing? So with that, I'm going to hand over the reins to Mr. Marcel, and I'm going to pass you the baton, Marcel, and hopefully you can share your screen. And we are going to see a great demo today, but also get a little overview on ControlUp really quick, just for those who don't know who the company is.
Thank you, Pete. Let's start with the company overview. We are a company based on the US with office in Europe and Israel. We have over 1,000 customers, and we're partners with all the big VDI end user computing partners, VMware, Citrix, Nutanix, Microsoft. We are able to help you automate a lot of the manual tasks that you have in your environment, understand the unpredictable user experience metrics, troubleshoot your logon durations, and give you in-depth visibility into what's happening in your environment. How do we do that? We allow you to get real-time information to make automation around the actions. If a VDA is unregistered, wait for a couple of minutes. If doesn't resolve, take action. It could be restart the service, reboot that machine. Likewise with the other technologies, if a instant clone is not deploying properly or stuck after a user log off, go ahead and take an action and resolve that. We give you a way to quickly look at all the data in your environment and draw conclusions, whether it's with benchmarking and take remediation. The last thing on the circle is that we are very much involved with the community, and there is a lot of people see
All right, I think, Marcel, we lost you on audio. I think, can the other panelists hear me or no?
Barry, yeah, Barry's here. I can hear you. I don't hear Marcel either.
All right, hold on. So Barry, if you want to keep talking to the slide, I'll see if Marcel, or if you can text them.
yeah, I think I'm back in, correct?
Yeah, we can hear you, buddy. All right, good. We lost you for a second.
So I'm going to shift it. We've done this multiple times with the demos. There you go, right? I got disconnected, so I kind of shift the demo, and I can show you right now that ControlUp was able to identify that my session was in red for the latency. Basically, I got disconnected, and you could see that flare up on the latency metrics for my user session. Hopefully, it'll stay nice and easy here. You could see basically I had no response. My session was completely unresponsive due to a network glitch, and that was reported immediately. It is back to normal. 22 milliseconds is about what I usually get to the data center. I'm blessed with having the data center on the same state I'm in. But you could see how that affected me here. And hopefully once the connection restores, if I have all my sessions, I'll be able to continue with the demo. So this metrics, by the way, that I'm seeing here, every user session, how much latency they're having, you have an average over the last couple of minutes. This is useful because latency tends to be very jumpy as users interact with their sessions. So it's great that you have a metric that lets you know what is the average. And you can see my average going down. And now that the connection has been restored, hopefully I won't have that problem again during this demo. And this information that you have in real time for every single one of your users, you have information on the latency, the bandwidth available for that connection. It's also available historically. And in the historical data, we have information for the user sessions, including the protocol latency. In this case, you could see that the protocol latency is 71 milliseconds. That's the average that we had yesterday on the environment, 22% higher than the global community benchmark that goes back to that ability to show you not just what's happening in your environment, but give you also a benchmark, or how do you compare with what's out there. And yesterday we did have an increase in our average latency. And if I click on that widget, we'll get the breakdown on, once I log myself in, we'll get a breakdown on what happened. Let's see if there it goes, on what happened yesterday. So first of all, you're able to define where are your users connected from, and this will break out the information. You can see that our call center, which is co-located with the data center, should be at a single digit or almost no latency. Yesterday, we did have some issues with some of the users, and you can see here how those issues affected the users on our call center. Just to put it into perspective, I'll turn off the call center data. This is our internet data. We are real users connected from everywhere, and you can see our average of 100 milliseconds, and then my disconnect at the usual time yesterday at 11:20. We were just joking before with the team that I work that it usually happens in the morning, and there's my 11:20 yesterday, and also had issues from my location.
That's interesting, Marcel. So this is really cool. So we actually just saw one way that ControlUp can help identify, hey, there was an issue and it had to do with latency. But it's kind of interesting that it happens at the same time every day. I wonder what it would be. That's interesting.
So while I got disconnected, I rushed to the kitchen to find the microwave running. So microwave is in the same frequencies as Wi-Fi. I have my suspicions that my problems at 11:20 might be related to lunch.
All right, that's cool. That's cool.
We definitely can validate that this is yesterday's data point at 11:20 from the Florida branch, which happens to be my home office. Yeah. And as we saw in the real time, this is. I find it funny that it does happen to on events on real time where I might be demoing real time with somebody and my session will freeze, and I'll grab that person and pull him over to my colleague next door on the next station and showed him how my latency just spiked up to the roof. And I was able to show that here where my session was really high. Now just to put some sense into the data, latency, this is the latency in the Citrix VMware RDP session that you're connected from. It is telling you what is the round trip between your client device to the server where you're connecting and back. Anything single digit will probably be users connecting inside the data center. I haven't seen anything better than that. 20 milliseconds, this user session, just to put some context into the data, is what you get when you're in the same state or the same city as your data center. Breno, my manager, happens to be in California. The data center is in Florida. 80 milliseconds. It's actually a great time for a user connecting cross-country. So if you have users distributed within the US, about 80 milliseconds, 90 milliseconds would be coast-to-coast latency. Okay, so that is basically the laws of physics. At the speed of light, it will take 80 milliseconds for his clicks to go to the data center and back and get feedback on his environment. Okay, so that is about latency. So real-time latency is measured for all sessions. It's also aggregated into the historicals as we saw here, and then aggregated one step further into the widgets on your top insights, which will show you what happened yesterday.
Yeah. And what's cool about this is this play, and like I said, response time can mean a lot of things. And one of the tips in the blog article was around conserving bandwidth, right? And so I'd say a good tip when you're working remotely is, well, one, you can't control your kids being on Netflix and YouTube, but you try to conserve as much bandwidth as possible, especially when you're doing video calls like this, right? And not run your microwave, I guess. That's a fun fact. Gonna have to test that out.
Yep. And we've been able, we did actually with Barry, who's on the webinar, we did find that we had a rack, kind of a mesh rack between his demo station and the router. and if we left it there, his bandwidth, his connection was awful. If we moved it, we were able to get that latency to fluctuate. It is really hard. I've spent years trying to find how to recreate real life, but it's not as easy. It usually boils down to you'll lose all connection, like it happened to me. But ControlUp can bring those things up. You'll get those huge numbers on the latency, right, as something is going wrong, and then if it stays, right, it'll start going red, yellow and red, indicating you visually that something is happening. You could also take action into that. So with ControlUp, you have here information on what is the active application that those users are running. If they're using a web browser, you can even see the URL, so that user Emmett is looking at the XenTegra integration services website. If he was to go and decide to go into a website and just basically look at video, right? So I'm gonna put it, actually, let's go for the fireplace. So if this user was into and go into watching videos, right? This could be cause that user to go into a very high bandwidth utilization. So if we look right now, that same user is currently consuming megabits of data. So let's just EMS. Let's focus on his user session. Okay, and you can see here, that is really a lot of bandwidth, right? And Citrix and ControlUp will bring in what is the bandwidth that each user is consuming. Just getting into the weeds of what we're doing, we are just collecting the metrics that are available from the different providers, and those are Citrix metrics in this case. And you can see that it basically starts going yellow and red, indicating us that, yes, that user is using too much. And when you click on an alerted cell, you get options on how to troubleshoot that and maybe take additional actions. Based on experience from Citrix, one of the things that you can do, and this is, by the way, available in Blast as well, you could reduce the session bandwidth by just cutting down on the frames per second. The default protocols use 30 frames per second, and that can push the bandwidth off the roof. Changing the frames per second for a user that might be watching a webinar, so he won't get 30 frames per second refresh on the screen, but if you're looking at my screen, it's not changing 30 frames per second. There's really no need for updating a webinar screen 30 times per second. And that can help reduce that bandwidth that is being consumed and take it, so that that user won't be using so much.
So since we're on the topic of bandwidth and latency, there's a great question that just came in from Eric. Can ControlUp get ICA round trip time, so RTT, for Citrix Cloud's built-in gateway? And that's not technically, well, it is tied to the gateway, but I guess I'll pause there and let you answer.
Okay, so let's let me talk about it. Can we do it? Yes. So you have, let's look at Julie, because let's use her session. She is logged in over here, and we're looking at her session. Out of the box, or on the grid, we can collect what is the latency, which is one of the Citrix metrics, by the way. It is not our metric, it is a Citrix metric on what is the latency that that user is experiencing. That metric is really inexpensive to collect. Okay, by inexpensive means we can do it every 3 seconds without spiking up the CPU on that machine. If we wanted to get the ICA round trip time or the ICA RTT, it is possible to do it from ControlUp. We don't do it all the time, but we do it through a script. Does that make sense? And if you see that the latency is increasing, you can actually go ahead and run that ICA round trip time for that user, and you'll get that information that you need. What I found and I know that there are different metrics, and we can get into very philosophical discussions on the difference between the ICA round trip, the ICA RTT, and latency. They're usually tied hand to hand. When they are not, okay, and you can see it here, on a healthy environment, those two will be one-to-one. a small different latency latency the latency is the one that we can collect efficiently, and we bring it here as well. The ICA RTT just takes a lot of CPU to collect, and that's why we don't do it on the grid every 3 seconds. But with the latency, you're able to have a data point that you can use for that. Now,
and that script, if we were to dig in, is actually it's set up to talk to your client and then leverages the settings within the Citrix session. Is that how it works?
correct. So all of the metrics that you are seeing are nothing but metrics from Citrix, right? So what ControlUp is doing, we're not inventing the wheel, we're leveraging what is available, right? Now, what we could do is, aside from that latency, we have this user input delay field. And you can see here how that is flaring up as the applications become unresponsive. And let's drill into Julie's session. And we could see that the user input delay field, let me pull it in, is available for every single one of my processes. So to answer in a slightly different way, what we can do that is not available for NMAS is we can actually see what's happening inside of the application. So we could see how Acrobat is actually having input delay. It is not network latency, but it is latency that the user is experiencing, kind of the spinner wheel or things not responding. And that will relate back to things that are happening within that machine, and we can go back to the machine and analyze what is the disk queue, the processor queue, and the different metrics that are reflecting as user input delay.
So Marcel, I would like to add, like, a lot of people assume that when a session is slow, and in Pete's poll, people said slow sessions are the number one problem. Many people assume that when the session's slow, they automatically assume it's bandwidth or latency. But user input delay is one of those metrics that allows us to measure the session slow in milliseconds to determine what that bottleneck is. We find many times it's other resources. It could be CPU, it could be IO, it could be memory. So that metric really allows you to get down deeper beyond looking at work.
Yep. So Marcel, another question came in, and maybe my brain's a little slow today, so maybe you know this acronym. So Robert asked, does the FPS change does the FPS change target on the device or the user? And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
yes. So when we did that FPS change that I showed earlier, the script is leveraging the ability that the protocol has, and the script can do it today for HDX and blast sessions. There is a metric on both protocols that if you know where to look for it and the script has the logic for it, it will go and change what are the FPS that are sent from the VDA or the VDI to the client device. On the screen, you'd see whatever the real refresh is, but we're changing how much FPS what's the cap of the FPS from the VDI to the user device. And the magic there is, again, if I'm a 3D drafter, 3D modeler, I need those 30 frames per second. If I'm doing some kind of image analysis and on video, I might need it. But most of the users, what they do is they're doing webinars, they're doing trainings, and for most of those things, 8 frames per second or even 4 frames per second will give them everything they need. Now, granted, just give the credit where credit is due. The protocols have the capability of making those changes. The script is doing nothing more than going to where the both BLAST and HDX will write their user policies and change those settings. The difference is that ControlUp can do it based on conditions. So both protocols, you can set what is the experience you want to deliver to your users, but that would be set as a policy. With Citrix, you could do it through different conditions on the NetScaler, but once the user has connected, both protocols don't have that capability, as far as I know, to adapt to what's happening, right? They'll have that policy kept at the maximum. Here, you could use a user's bandwidth being very high as a condition to make a change on the user experience.
Yep. So Robert, that's a follow on. So in the case of virtual apps, so Zen app scenario in our old world, would that impact a user or all the users on the server?
That's a great question. HDX registry keys allow you to do it per user, so you can actually do that to a single user. With Blast, at least as far as I was able to research it, and what the script is doing, the Blast would do it for every user on a server. So if it's VDI Blast or VMware Blast, you have no problem in using it. If it's RDS Blast, the script will actually just return a value and say, I cannot do it just for that user session. Okay, so HDX can be done per user session. For Blast, for VMware Blast, it can only be done for VDI with the knowledge that the script currently has. Obviously, the vendors might be able to contribute and help us take it further, but that's, yes. For XenTegra, yes, it is possible, or Citrix applications.
Great. So yeah, great questions. Keep these questions coming because it helps us show you guys stuff. And I'm telling you right now, you ask a question, I can, well, I won't say guarantee, but I bet Marcel could show it.
Thank you.
And I want to make a valid point. So this is one of the things I've learned working with you over the years in getting this set up, is this is where a service account is key, right? So when you set up your agent, it's going to use a service account context to have the proper permissions to, execute the scripts, et cetera, correct?
Well, everything that we're doing here is ControlUp will already do it. So the way that ControlUp is architected, and maybe a good segue to go to our architectural slide for those that might not know it. So the way that ControlUp works is you have the ControlUp console, which we've been looking at and analyzing in real time. And we did take a peek into our historical insights, which are basically the same data you saw in real time collected and analyzed with our monitor, and then populate it into insights. The way that we work is we'll deploy the monitoring into the different components of the environments. We'll use APIs to pull information from the end user component brokering devices, API connections for the different hypervisors and for the Citrix Netscaler gateway. And those credentials, you could use NSRoot and domain admin for that. I would not recommend it, but I would recommend using service accounts with the minimal permissions for read-only on the different environments. And I want to jump into some of the things that you alluded earlier. And as we're talking into having your users working remotely and optimizing, there's a lot of that works out of the box, but there are things that I would, although they're released, I would caution here to experiment and test what works best for you. But I think definitely worth highlighting for our users. And like we are doing right now, we are using technology for doing a virtual meeting, virtual webinar. Those technologies are available with optimization. So everybody knows about Skype for business optimization on the different platforms. I just wanted to highlight, I happen to know it because we use internally Zoom. Zoom does have a VDI client. So if you have your users using Zoom within a VDI environment, take a look at the Zoom VDI. You'll install it as an application on your VDIs. The users will have to add in a little attachment to Citrix Receiver or the VMware Horizon client, but it can optimize Zoom and have the audio and video handled directly from the client device to the Zoom backend without going through your virtual infrastructure. So that's one thing that I wanted to highlight. So there's a lot of optimization techniques. There's been for a couple of years the Skype for Business. Zoom, as I can show here, it is available. It is provided directly by Zoom as far as I've been able to see on their Zoom VDI. I think Avaya also has those optimizations. If they're available, now that you have your workforce remote, make sure that they're being used. Because there's really no point in sending video and audio bits through a virtual infrastructure so that they reach another client device if you could do it directly from client to client without overloading your data center. And with that, I want to show something else that can be done. So we'll take Julie's session as an example here. And pay attention to the bandwidth. And what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and bring up the screenshot of what Julie's doing. Enable auto refresh. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you something else. And again, this is new technologies. They are released by the vendors. I've used it with some positive results, but just definitely make sure that you look at it. I just want to make sure that you know that it's available. So if I open within that Julie session browser and we play a video. Okay, so this is a really heavy video, right? Let's play it on a loop. And what we're going to see is obviously ControlUp is just updating once per second, but we can immediately see how that user bandwidth is increasing. Because there's a full motion video, it is 30 frames per second. For those interested in that, I think Robert was one that asked the question. If you search for it, it's available on YouTube. That video, if you look at it, your eyes will tell you that there are 6 spokes. Depending if you are seeing 30 frames per second, you'll see 6. If you're not seeing 30 frames per second, you'll see different things like you see here. But what I wanted to focus on is if you play that video, it will consume bandwidth. It's relentless. It will not stop, right? And it'll be about 1 megabit, 2 megabits per second, depending on the resolution that the user is playing. So that is, again, if I just play it directly from the website. Now, notice I did Bing for that video, and that video is playing with a website from Bing. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'll stop that video for a second. Keep in mind that 0.7 megabits per second, I'm going to go and just Google for the same video. And when I play it, the URL is going to be YouTube. Now, you'll have to take my word for it because you're not seeing the video here, yet that video is playing. And now, what's really interesting here is how much bandwidth it is that playback is consuming.
Now, Marcel, the reason why you can't see it is because you're shadowing the session?
Correct. I am shadowing what the server session is seeing, and the server, this Citrix XenUp session, is actually seeing 0. There is nothing playing. There's a white canvas. What I'm going to do now, and pardon me for those that are on a smaller screen, you're actually going to see a lot more on the screen. So it'll be a little bit smaller. And you can now see that I've been running all the time within a Citrix session. And I'm going to show the other session. So what you could see here, right, is here's that video session, right? I am running inside a desktop viewer. You could see that video playback, yet we're not seeing it on the server. And most importantly,
so what you're showing here is what the user is seeing, and then what you're seeing on the other side is what you would see as an administrator, but the user experience is pretty solid.
It is actually local because it is local. And the technology being used here is HDX browser redirection.
Yep.
Okay, what you can see, again, to highlight what I wanted to show here is the bandwidth being used is nearly 0. Okay, so just bear in mind, it is available. Citrix, if you're using the latest LTSR, and I think 1811 or 1819 build already has it, you do need a fairly recent receiver. So yes, this is available in Citrix general availability, but it has to be some of the later versions. It is turned on by default for YouTube. Okay, so by default, the youtube.com URLs will redirect. Why am I showing it in IE? Because IE doesn't have any prereqs. They're able to hook directly into IE, and it sends it to the IE on a Windows client device. They also have the ability to do it in Chrome, but it does require you to load a Chrome browser plugin. And I have not had the same success that I've had with IE. So just something to keep in mind. And the theme here is, yes, using redirection technologies, whether it's for web content or for web conferencing, it's
Yep.
something worth doing. And I think this is where you had something you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, so I have another poll since we're on the hot topic. So we all are working from home, and it's just a simple yes or no. When using video collaboration tool like Zoom or GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams, are you using it inside Citrix session or even a VDI session? We can even generalize it. And so pick what you typically would advise your users to do. And it helps us, because what Marcel is showing is very valid. It's very valid to your day-to-day users. I'm gonna give this a couple more seconds for those that are sleeping still. So again, take a minute to answer the poll. We'll give it a couple more seconds. And it's 50-50. Last call, going once, going twice, and last call. All right, so we got almost 50-50, Marcel. Wow. So here you go.
50-50 using or 50-50?
So 50-50. So people running it locally versus people running it inside of a hosted session. So, and I would say that aligns to what I see in my own company. Like, we have a lot of people using it in VDI, and then a lot of people not. So then the question would then be, if you're using it inside the VDI, what version of Citrix are you running? What version of the Workspace app are you running? Because I assume this is going to be dependent on Workspace app. And then do you have the policies enabled?
So just, I think the 50-50 is a good, it's representative, but just remember that it's not a black and white. It's not,
Yep.
Don't use Zoom out inside of the VDI. There are options to use it inside of the VDI. There are options to watch the webinars inside of the VDI. They do require redirection and handle with care, right? Sharp edges, handle with care. But worth investigating. Taking it back to what we could do to help there. So if I go back and I play that video again, and I'm just gonna play a really annoying video that will just burn through bandwidth.
Getting that teed up, a question came in, you kind of touched on it, but I just want to highlight it one more time. So the URL, displaying URLs from other browsers. So yes, we know that browser redirection can work with other browsers, but you guys are displaying URLs in your portal here. And I think, is that just tied to IE, or can it see other browsers as well?
So the currently released version will display the URL for IE only.
Okay.
What we did is on 8.15, which is currently on the last phases of beta, we actually have new fields for every user session. What is the active application title? So you could see what is the title of the application. If you're looking at my session, I'm right now looking at the ControlUp Management Console. If we look at Julie, she's right now playing a 4K HDR fireplace real-time video. And I could scroll to the right, and if they are watching, the active application is a browser, you'll get the active URL. So we're able to see what are the URLs that our users are visiting.
Cool. So so the version you're showing right now is not available yet?
8.15. Not available yet. We are in the latest stages of beta. But again, I never commit to a release. Many years in development taught me that anything can happen. But yes, we're in the latest stages of beta. Expect to see this out soon. And I just want to highlight, right, with anything that has this type of information, you want to have the options of blocking certain URLs. So definitely there could be things that you don't want to present and record, and you do have all that flexibility within ControlUp to hide different applications or different URLs, and all of that is available through our settings here.
Sweet.
And I would add, Pete, it is going to be very soon for this.
Yeah.
So it's not a significant wait for 8.15. We've been running it in our demo for probably 6 weeks.
Nice, nice. Yeah, this is cool. So good. I actually do love that feature that you can see the active app, you can see the active browser, the URL,
Mhm.
and then you can, I assume, correlate that with some history as well to see what URL potentially spiked the bandwidth, etc.
Now, what I wanted to just wrap up one more thing that we spoke or I mentioned earlier about automation and about the scripting.
Yep.
With ControlUp, for example, if you have the ability to have recommended actions, and sometimes the actions could be to make a change on the system. Something else that you could do is if you see a situation that could be remediated by a user action. So again, going back to that user, right, that is watching a video, right, and he's doing it on IE with a Bing URL that doesn't redirect. Okay, we could maybe pop up a message, and let me make sure that let's switch again to a full display so that you can see that happening. Let's bring that user. Here's the calming, relaxing 4K video. And I could recommend that user, right, to use browser content redirection. Okay, so you could pop up a message and let that user know, yes, you have, okay, all that it's needed for HDX browser content redirection, and they're not taking advantage of it. This is still not published to our community, so if anybody's interested in knowing that, you could see here that script did check for that session. What is the URL? What is the application? Do we have the processes that are needed to handle browser content redirection? And then if all the boxes check, it will also pop up and let that user know that, yes, he could be doing browser content redirection. And we could even automate that through the automation capabilities of ControlUp. So I think we're coming on the top of the hour. I have gone through the material that I wanted to present.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of right on top of shout out to David for attending. Thank you for attending again, David. But he asked a good indirect question, but he made a comment about, hey, I'm using a custom partition with IGEL, but you guys recently have brought on support for IGEL, and we'd love to give you a couple seconds to highlight that.
Yep. So what we've done with IGEL is we leverage the feature that we released a while ago that allows us to connect to Linux devices. And there are two ways that you can integrate with your IGEL devices. The first one is you could actually pull them into ControlUp as devices. So I can, let's focus here on my IGEL devices. And I could see for my IGEL devices, what is the OS they're running, the memory, how long have they been powered up, how much CPU are they consuming, memory. I can drill into those machines and see them, every process that it's running. I think that this is important to highlight as you, even if you have the IGEL hardware, it is not all hardware was created equal. And if you repurpose devices, you definitely want to have a view into what that hardware is doing. How much, you'll see different devices with different characteristics. You could see the memory, the CPU, drill down into those devices. We have the ability to issue scripts to the UMS, whether it's to update the configuration, to shadow that terminal, wake up or device, or see the processes, the profiles that apply to that machine. So again, we could do it directly by using our custom partition in the IGEL devices and getting data directly from them. Another alternative, if you want to use it, is to actually leverage some scripts that we publish that if you look for the sessions, and let's look for one of the sessions that is connected from an IGEL device. We can also integrate from here, right? Based on the client name, the default integration will look for ITC, UD, or IGEL on the client name for a user session, and then run some of the same scripts, right? So reboot the session, get the assets attached to that device. So if we look, this is this device, right? For this user, they're running a session in IGEL. We could see that in ControlUp over here. See the application, and I could run the scripts and get, for example, the assets attached to that IGEL device or the configuration of that device. And this is leveraging the IGEL UMS REST API to pull in that data.
Cool. Yeah, this is cool. This is a really cool integration. I've been testing it with another customer of mine as well. So, all right. Well, that was a awesome packed demo, Marcel, as always. Again, I encourage questions. If you don't mind, I'm going to take control and just kind of do a final call for any questions. So again, if you have a question, please ask in the Q&A dialogue as we do our wrap up here. And yes, there will be a recording sent out post session. And you will see the artifacts of this eventually hit the interwebs on our YouTube channel. So definitely, check out the YouTube channel and keep an eye out for that, or you can click on the recording. All right, so as questions roll in, I'm going to just do a quick recap on who is XenTegra and how XenTegra and ControlUp work together. So this is Andy, our fearless leader and founder, and he founded XenTegra on two simple things. One, we'd like to enable our customers with things like webinars and hands-on workshops, etc. And two, we really work hard to partner with our partners, and we treat vendors like ControlUp not like a partner, but more like a customer. So we're always trying to enhance our partnership and do more for our partners than just being a transacting partner. So yes, I can sell you ControlUp, and I'm going to talk about something that we're doing that's very unique. I can come in and help you get it up and running, and I can usually phone a friend if I get into trouble, but I'm getting pretty good at ControlUp, as is Randy and Harvey on my team. And then finally, we can act as an advisor. But the best part about working with a partner, and everybody on this call knows it, is I can keep one person accountable. So if you're doing Citrix plus ControlUp or Citrix plus ControlUp plus Azure, you can call me and say, hey, Pete, I got a problem. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be able to say, oh, yeah, I've seen that problem, and it's this, this, and this, versus if you call Citrix support, they might blame Azure. And if you call Azure support, they're going to blame Citrix. And and then ControlUp's going to have the answer probably because you'll just look at their console and see where the issue is. So again, that's the value of working with a partner. So if you aren't working with XenTegra, definitely consider working with us. We are different in the sense that we're not just focused on transacting, we're also focusing on how to get more out of your investment. So what's unique with XenTegra and ControlUp? Well, we're going to send up some follow-up stuff, and one of the things we do is we include ControlUp into what we call our micro assessment. So we do a free micro assessment, and we come in and assess your environment, whether it's Citrix and or now VMware. And we come in, we assess the environment, and we give you an analysis of what we find. And the goal is simple. One is to give you some good food for thought on what's going on in your environment, but then two, it's a great way to understand how XenTegra works and get a free demo of ControlUp. So again, this is something that we do, and we've been doing now for almost 2 years with ControlUp, and it works great because we can now not only put good solid things behind our analysis, but we can also put data, and data, let's face it, helps drive decisions. So again, we'll be sending out a follow-up on how to get access to an assessment if you've never done one with us. And part of that assessment, we'll do a install of ControlUp and use that as a way to capture some of the issues that could be happening in your environment today. So I'm going to do one final call for questions, and one did come in from Kevin. Thanks, Kevin, for joining again, and great to see your name again. So Marcel, he asked about any upcoming Azure Monitor integration for on-prem deployments. So are you guys going to be doing anything with Azure in the near future?
Yeah, so the ControlUp is able to monitor machines on any environment, including Azure. We don't have the API integration just yet, but you definitely can run ControlUp and gather information from Azure VMs using our lightweight agent. With the further integration with Azure, we are working on some of the scripts that can be will be made available through the community to interact with your Azure VMs, your Azure instances as needed. There is already monitoring. You can monitor your Windows virtual desktop, your WVD machines with that lightweight agent, and you'll see the metrics for the user sessions as well.
Cool. Another question came in. Can you do any cloud platform? And I'll take a swing, and you can keep me honest here. But you know, the great thing about ControlUp is they may not have direct tie-in to the APIs per se. So what I mean by that, at the platform level. So for example, you know, I know, yes, Azure is coming soon. I'm guessing Google Cloud Platform's on your radar. But you guys do technically support Citrix Cloud today, or that's on its way as well, correct?
So again, like we do have the integration points through our lightweight agent, which you can install on your VDAs for Citrix Cloud, whether they're on-prem or on the cloud. We'll get the monitoring of the user sessions, the VDA machine health, and even the registration status for any VDA can be picked up, even if it's Citrix Cloud. Now, that being said, later this year, we'll have integration into the API for Citrix Cloud, which will allow us also to look at maintenance status of machines, provisioning, and so on and so forth, just like we do today for on-prem deployments of Citrix.
And I would add to that, Pete, that we actually have a lot of customers today already using us for Citrix Cloud.
Yep.
And some very large customers using us today for Citrix Cloud. So that's been a very successful integration for us.
Yeah, and arguably today it works. You just don't have the direct tie-in to the APIs yet. So you can put the agent on any VDA. You can put the agent on the cloud connectors. You can put and you can obviously see round trip time via HDX. So there's a lot of integration today that's there. It's just you don't have the direct tie-in to the platform. So
we actually have that tie-in in beta, and we actually have, and it's a beta that we have a number of very large Citrix Cloud customers using today. So we're not far away.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think
I should mention, since we mentioned Citrix Cloud, we have a lot of customers using us with Horizon Cloud as well, whether it's Horizon Cloud on Azure, Horizon Cloud on AWS, and Horizon Cloud on SoftLayer.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So this is the time of the webinar where I'll go around the horn and get some final thoughts. So Marcel, any kind of final thoughts or comments?
First, thank you for having us here and giving us the opportunity. I hope that we were able to basically get hands-on and some of the things that you might want to use ControlUp, or be conscious as you work with your remote force that you have the ControlUp can help you get your hands and get the grip on.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time again. Barry, any final thoughts or comments?
I'd like to thank you, Pete, for setting this up. Thanks, XenTegra. XenTegra has been a fantastic partner for ControlUp. Done many micro assessments with our tool, and we have many happy customers through XenTegra. And they do a fantastic job, and we hear great feedback from our customers about their experience with XenTegra. So thanks, Pete, for giving us the time today.
And then Lisa, any final comments from you, or any upcoming things that our users might be interested in on your side?
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in our Agile integration, we'll actually be partnering with them on a webinar on May 7th. So if you go ahead and go to our website under events, you can find some more information about that there. Awesome.
Well, thanks for joining, everybody. And just final look at questions. So Amitabh, let's connect offline. The simple answer is yes to your question, but it's a little more involved. So definitely reach out with that question. And then finally, next week, we are going to be joined by our friends over at Login VSI. So you don't want to miss that. It's going to be a juicy topic. I'll be releasing the landing page today on that. So I've been working with them for the last few days on finalizing the topic. So definitely look to join us next week. And with that, I say thanks everybody for joining today, and thanks to ControlUp for joining today, and hope everybody has a great Wednesday, and hope to see you guys and everybody on the call next week. Have a great day.